conversation and this discussion we've had, we've been joined by a freelance sports writer who is Neel Shelat, who is joined us all the way from Qatar, Doha. Hello, sir. Good evening. Welcome to ABC Sports.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us as well. Though late in your country, you've joined us. We are grateful for that. What do you make as an African football expert of this combined 11 of the week? Is there any player you think should have made the list who didn't, or do you agree with this list?
No, I think it's a pretty good list. I mean, you just look at some of the names there. I really like some of the shouts, like Yahya Fofana, for example. I think he's been the best goalkeeper in France this season, and he's probably underrated because he plays for a lower table team. But I would say Angers are surviving or staying up as things stand almost single-handedly because of him. And of course, I mean, the likes of Marmoush and Baleba as well is an exceptional player, exceptional talent as well. I think he can even go on to maybe become the most expensive African player if Brighton do sell him in a season or two. So there's some very exciting young talents and of course some more experienced campaigners there. And of course, you look at the bench, there's names like Osimhen and Salah in there. So it just shows how much quality there is right now.
Well, great insight from you, but if you could kindly reset or restructure your Zoom a little, we seem to be losing you. Yes, please. Yeah, that's fine. Now, what do you make of the future of African football in terms of on the European scene? If you look at this star-studded team and look at our bench, what do you make of Africa's future?
No, I mean, like I said, it's clearly very, very bright. You see some of the names there, like I said, so Baliba, for example, I think has all the potential to become the most expensive African player if Brighton do sell him. So the current record is Nicolas Pepe, who went for about 80 million euros to Arsenal. But I think Baleba could easily become the first African player to fetch a 9-digit transfer fee in euros if Brighton do sell him. And then there's so many guys like Yankuba Minteh as well, again at Brighton. He's such an exciting talent. Omar Marmoush obviously just joined Manchester City, about 25 years old, and he still has a long career ahead of him. So yeah, I think the fact that most of these players in this list are on the younger side, like around 25 or younger, just goes to show how much quality there is, how much talent there is, and so how much potential there is for the future.
Well, great insight there. For the first time, I've heard a sports analyst pick on Carlos Baleba. I think he's a player who, as you rightly mentioned, his talent has been slept on. It's good that you've showed some faith in him, and we hope that your show of faith in him would be repaid when Brighton get good money for him. But let's zone in quickly into the UEFA Champions League. Yesterday night, Atlanta were kicked out by Club Brugge, and in a very interesting way, Jean-Pierre Gasperini, the coach of Atalanta, he had some very harsh words for the African Player of the Year, Ademola Lookman, who is not on this list. He said he's the worst penalty taker. He went on to say very uncharitable words about him. Today we saw Ademola Lookman react with a statement on his Instagram page as well. What do you make of the whole saga from the African Player of the Year and his coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty unfortunate to see, and I mean, it was surely a moment of emotion and maybe of disappointment for Gasperini after the match where he said those words. But it's definitely not something you want to see a coach saying about any of their players publicly, but especially, like you said, the African Player of the Year and surely Atalanta's best player as well. I mean, if you look at the team, the way they were playing without Lookman when he was out injured versus the way they're playing with him in, it's just completely worlds apart. Remember, he scored the hat-trick that got them their first ever continental trophy in the Europa League last season. And even in this match, he was the only reason that the second half became competitive because they were 3-0 down in the first half. So, I mean, like I said, to say such a thing about any of your players is bad, but to say it about your star player, your key player, is very questionable. But I mean, from Lookman's perspective, there have always been some rumors from time to time that he might be looking for a move away from Atalanta. And of course, if he does choose to seek an opportunity elsewhere, I'm sure he won't be short of suitors because his talent has been very clear for everyone to see over the last year or so.
Great. Now let's zoom into today's games. Madrid will take on Manchester City in just a few minutes time, less than an hour. The big news is that Erling Haaland is not in the starting lineup; he's on the bench. But Omar Marmoush has had a lot of faith being placed in him after the hat-trick over the weekend. He starts for Manchester City. They are a goal down by and they have a deficit going to the Bernabeu. What do you make of their chances and the place of faith by Guardiola in Umar Mamouche?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Holland, of course, he picked up something of an injury on the weekend against Newcastle.
Yeah,
So my understanding is it's probably because of that he's only fit enough to start on the bench. But yeah, I mean, a huge opportunity for Marmoush. I do think the Marmoush and Holland partnership is really what is ideal for City, and definitely that will get the best out of Marmoush as well. And we saw on the weekend the runs he made around Holland were the reason he got
yeah,
all of those
yeah,
goals.
yeah, true.
So it'll be interesting to see how he does alone up front, so to speak. But yeah, a huge opportunity for him. But I would say, especially with Holland out of the side, I think Real
Okay.
Madrid are very much the favorites for this tie.
Well, in wrapping up, just a question, simple question. It takes me back to the Lookman issue. Remember a few years ago when Victor Osimhen was in red hot form for Napoli as well. He had issues with racism with his club. Now we've got Ademola Lookman also in red hot form for Atalanta, and then we've had issues with his coach. Do you see a subtle act of racism from the clubs in Italy as against their star African players? Just quickly, in less than 30 seconds.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to say, but as you said, there is history and there is maybe some sort of a theme. So it's definitely disappointing to see. And I mean, hopefully we don't see such more instances in the future.
Thank you very much.